At some point in the quiet, unfolding narrative of our lives, most of us cross a hidden and often imperceptible threshold. It is a subtle but devastating turning point where the reflection staring back from the mirror belongs irrevocably to a stranger, the very embodiment of everything we once swore, with the fierce, unwavering conviction of youth, that we would never be. We find ourselves encased in the rigid form of adulthood, a shape that, to our earlier, unbound consciousness, would have seemed like a terrifying impossibility. As the years silently accumulate, the vivid memory of the child we once were begins a slow, painful process of dissolution, fading like a watercolor left out in the rain. That vibrant, luminous creature, defined by endless potential and wonder, retreats until they feel less like our origin and more like a distant, unreachable ghost. Their boundless playfulness and radical innocence are systematically replaced by the heavy sediments of bitterness, chronic frustration, and a chilling cynicism. While we must concede that time and entropy are invincible opponents, relentless forces that besiege us until our final breath, we possess a singular, internal battleground where true victory remains plausible. We can reconquer our own spirits and carve a path back to that lost childlike illumination and genuine levity. The root cause of this somber transformation lies in a flawed, transactional logic we internalized early on. Society hands us a rigid, unforgiving script, the belief that our worth, love, and acceptance are not inherent, but must be earned through performance, achievement, and adherence to serious, rigid metrics. We accepted this contract, trading our innate, carefree lightness, our ability to exist purely for the sake of existing, for the deceptive currency of status and solemnity. We became curators of a carefully managed persona, starving our authentic selves to feed a demanding, external audience. Along this demanding path to the so-called promised land of success, we inevitably collide with countless others who have made the same harsh bargain, many of whom inflict wounds both small and monumental. It is through these repeated injustices and random cruelties that we realize how profoundly unfair and unbalanced the world truly is. To survive, we construct elaborate emotional armor, a hard, unyielding shell designed to deflect the constant debris of disappointment. We learn to become forceful, often disagreeable, mistaking emotional numbness for the pinnacle of resilience and strength. Regardless of whether we ultimately achieve the markers of great professional or financial success, we eventually arrive at a disquieting realization: the joy and playfulness we mortgaged are not waiting for us in greater form at the finish line. Instead, we are met with a mountain of administrative trivialities, minor annoyances, and sheer exhaustion that culminates in a pervasive sense of futility. While there is certainly space for purpose, pride, and achievement, how many of us acquire these without such immense personal sacrifices that they simply result in the same hard-shelled numbness? We find ourselves echoing the grim wisdom of Arthur Schopenhauer, who observed that human life is spent perpetually striving for a horizon that recedes upon approach. We are constantly seeking something that promises happiness, yet seldom attaining it, only to be disappointed, ultimately arriving in the harbor with the ship's rigging gone. This enduring anger and bitterness is not solely a reflection of our life's objective conditions, but a direct result of our perception, specifically, the gap between our desires and our difficult reality. Our cynicism often finds its paradoxical origin in the most unexpected place, a deep, unyielding, but misguided optimism. This is the belief, sustained since youth, that life should remain easy, light, and devoid of heavy consequence. We vividly recall judging the stern, joyless adults of our youth, the man scoffing at our laughter, the woman frantically yelling in the store, believing we were somehow immune to their weary fate. Yet, by carrying that unrealistic expectation of perfection and infinite party balloons, we set ourselves up for an inevitable collision, driving the same stake of disappointment through our own hearts that they once carried. As the days accelerate and blur into a relentless stream of obligations, questions, and duties we never asked for, we unconsciously begin to share the sensibilities of those individuals we once condemned. The compounding tedium of adulthood, amplified by the sting of age, can deliver a crushing blow if we are not philosophically prepared. The only antidote to this intense bitterness is found in letting go of that specific, immature optimism, the stubborn delusion that if we just apply enough effort and strategy, life will become a perfectly solvable equation. The discovery of sustainable inner peace comes, ironically, from surrendering that rigid ideal and fully accepting what is fundamentally uncontrollable and inevitable. This foundational wisdom connects the most enduring schools of thought, from the flowing acceptance of Taoism to the rational endurance of Stoicism and the clear-eyed realism of philosophical pessimism. As Lao Tzu warns, to try and forcibly control the divine vessel that is the world is to fail, he who holds on to it loses. This confrontation also requires us to dismantle the modern idol of purpose and productivity. One reason children remain joyful is that they are not obsessed with efficiency or measurable output. A child playing with a stick is not calculating its return on investment, they are utterly immersed in the qualitative richness of the present moment. As adults, we have become slaves to metrics and the future. Every action must be a means to an end, effectively rendering the present moment nothing more than an anxious waiting room. To reclaim our spirit, we must actively relearn the art of sacred uselessness, cultivating moments of play, profound curiosity, and conversations that serve no utility other than the simple, defiant act of being authentically enjoyed. We must learn to waste time so beautifully and deliberately that the wasted time becomes the essence of living. This process necessitates a shift in our optical setting, a move from the adult's glance to the child's gaze. The adult glances to categorize, label, and dismiss. This is a chore, this is a traffic jam, this is annoying. The child gazes to explore, finding pattern and mystery in the texture of the immediate. When we are bitter, the world feels dull because we are no longer truly looking, we are merely interacting with our mental labels. By shedding the arrogance of assuming we know what everything is, we reintroduce mystery into the mundane. The traffic jam is not just an obstacle, but a forced pause. The annoyance is a temporary phenomenon. This perspective is the essence of what Albert Camus termed the absurd, the conflict between our deep need for meaning and the universe's unreasonable silence. However, Camus argued that this void, once acknowledged, can be filled with passion and defiant beauty. Likewise, Nietzsche urged us to become a yes-sayer, to see as beautiful what is necessary, amor fati. Of course, this philosophy is not a call for passive indifference or the complete abandonment of responsibility. Negative responses like anger, frustration, or skepticism are often healthy and necessary tools. We must be defiant when boundaries are crossed and cautious when faced with potential exploitation. The ultimate goal is not to eliminate effort, but to reconsider the meaning and intensity of our grip. We must frequently ask ourselves, how serious is everything we are clinging to, ultimately? In the end, we all fall into oblivion, and the world will release our grips for us regardless. The highest aim is to achieve a second innocence. The first innocence of childhood is the product of ignorance, joy before knowing pain. The second innocence is the product of profound wisdom, joy despite knowing the pain. It is the realization that life is hard, tragic, and tedious, yet we possess the freedom to experience genuine playfulness within those constraints. We can accept the absurd and uncontrollable nature of everything, and we can look upon the cosmic joke with clarity and compassion. We do not have to finalize our transformation into the bitter stranger in the mirror. We can choose to laugh, instead of simply scoff.